in life, but still, it is the biggest mystery. From the time humans first looked at the stars and asked questions about existence, one question never left their hearts. What happens after death? Is there nothing? Or is there something more? Something that continues beyond the grave? Science and belief walk two different roads, but both roads try to reach the same destination: the truth of what lies after life ends. Science uses evidence, experiments, and logic. Religion and belief use faith, scriptures, and centuries of traditions. But many people who have had near-death experiences report something strange, something beyond science. They describe tunnels of light, voices calling them, or even meeting loved ones who passed away long ago. Science says these visions are the brain's final tricks, caused by chemicals and oxygen shortage. Belief says these visions are the first step into the afterlife. Let us take the scientific side first. According to modern science, life is energy moving inside our body. Our heart pumps blood, our brain fires electrical signals, and our cells work like tiny machines. When the heart stops and the brain no longer receives oxygen, the body shuts down. Consciousness, the thing we call I or self, is tied to the brain's activity. Without the brain, there's no you. From this view, death is final. It is like blowing out a candle. The flame disappears, and only smoke remains. There's no place the flame goes. It just stops. But if death is only the end, why do humans across every culture, every history, every religion believe in life after death? Why do so many people see dreams of dead relatives, feel their presence, or claim to hear their voices? Science says it's grief, imagination, or the brain's way of coping with loss. Yet belief says it's real proof that souls live on. The clash between science and belief creates a mystery deeper than the ocean. Think of ancient Egypt. Thousands of years ago, pharaohs built pyramids because they believed death was not the end. They buried kings with food, treasures, and even servants, so the king could live in another world. In Hinduism, people believe in reincarnation. The soul is reborn in another body. In Christianity and Islam, there is heaven and hell, reward and punishment after judgment. In Buddhism, death is a step in the cycle of rebirth until the soul reaches peace. These beliefs are not small. Billions of people follow them even today. If so many believe, can all of them be wrong? Now let us return to science. Scientists admit they cannot fully explain consciousness. What is the self? How does awareness exist? How do thoughts, emotions, and memories come from simple brain cells? If consciousness is not fully understood, then how can science be so sure that it ends with death? Some scientists have even studied near-death experiences carefully. They found that patients whose hearts had stopped for minutes sometimes came back with memories. Detailed memories of things they could not have seen or heard in that state. One patient described doctors in the room, the tools they used, the exact words they said, while his brain was clinically dead. How can science explain this? Some suggest maybe the brain still had hidden activity. Others say maybe consciousness is not trapped in the brain, but exists outside the body. Like a signal or frequency we do not yet understand. Belief systems say exactly this. The soul is not the body. The body is just a house, and when death comes, the soul leaves the house and goes to another world. Some describe it as a journey through light, others as crossing a bridge, others as entering a garden or facing judgment. All these images are different, but the core idea is the same. Something continues. Now imagine yourself again, lying in that hospital room. Your last breath escapes. According to science, that is the end. But according to belief, you open your eyes to another reality. Maybe you see a tunnel of light. Maybe you hear voices. Maybe you feel peace like never before. Or maybe you feel fear, depending on how you lived your life. Belief says your actions, your kindness, your sins, all decide what comes next. Science says actions and sins do not matter. Only life mattered, and now it is finished. Its difference makes death one of the most suspenseful mysteries of all time. You cannot test it like an experiment. You cannot come back from the grave and give a report. At least, not in a way science accepts. And yet, countless stories of ghosts, spirits, and visions keep appearing in every culture. If they are all illusions, why do they happen again and again? If they are real, why can science not measure them? Death is like standing at the edge of a dark ocean. Science tells us the ocean is empty, just water and nothing more. Belief tells us the ocean is full of unseen worlds, islands of light and darkness, journeys waiting for the soul. We stand at the shore, wondering which one is true. But fear is the real twist. What if both science and belief are partly right? What if death is not an end, but also not exactly what religions describe? Some researchers suggest consciousness might be like energy. And energy cannot be destroyed. It only changes form. Maybe the soul is a form of energy, shifting into another state after death. Not heaven or hell as described in holy books, but something completely beyond our imagination. A place that science has not discovered yet, but belief has always hinted at. The suspense is this: none of us can escape death. No matter how rich or poor, no matter how powerful or weak, one day we all face the same door. The question is not whether the door exists. The question is what lies on the other side. Science shrugs its shoulders. Belief raises its finger toward the sky. And we humans live our lives caught between the two, never knowing for sure. Maybe one day science will discover the truth. Maybe one day technology will allow us to see beyond the moment of death, to track consciousness as it leaves the body. Or maybe that truth is meant to remain hidden, a mystery only revealed when our own time comes. Until then, the question will haunt us, like a shadow following us everywhere. What happens after death? The night was unusually quiet. A cold breeze touched the windows as if carrying whispers from another dimension. Daniel sat in his small room, staring at an old book titled Life After Death, Science and Faith. His fingers trembled slightly as he flipped through the pages, because deep down, he was haunted by the question, what really happens when we die? In science, death is described as the end of biological functions. The brain shuts down, the heart stops beating, the body becomes motionless. But Daniel had read strange cases, people who were declared clinically dead, but returned after minutes or even hours. They spoke of lights, tunnels, voices, and sometimes even shadows. Science called them near-death experiences. But Daniel felt something beyond science was hidden there. He remembered the story of a man in London who drowned in the River Thames and was revived after 20 minutes. That man claimed he saw a tunnel of light and at the end a door. But just as he was about to enter, he felt a strong pull, and suddenly he woke up in the hospital. Doctors said his brain had simply created illusions during oxygen deprivation, but the man was convinced it was real. Daniel leaned back in his chair, his eyes fixed on the ceiling. If life ends in nothing, then why do we fear death so much? And if something exists, then what is it? At that very moment, his phone buzzed. It was a message from his friend Ayesha, a medical researcher. Daniel, I've been studying near-death cases at the university lab. There's one story you won't believe. Want to hear? His heart skipped a beat. Without hesitation, he typed back, "Tell me everything." The story Ayesha shared was chilling. A patient had been in a coma for weeks. The doctors declared his brain dead. But when the man miraculously woke up, he said he had been watching the doctors from above. He even described exact conversations and instruments they used. The medical staff was shocked. How could a dead brain perceive anything? Science had no explanation. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, listening to the ticking clock, feeling as if unseen eyes were watching him. He tried to convince himself it was just imagination. But the thought of death lingered in the dark corners of his mind. Suddenly, At 3:15 a.m., he felt his chest tighten. His breath slowed. For a terrifying moment, he thought he was dying. His vision blurred, and he felt his soul being pulled out of his body. The room appeared smaller, distant, like a dream. Then he saw himself, lying on the bed, motionless. His spirit floated above, watching his own body. Daniel wanted to scream, but no voice came out. Panic rushed through him. Was this death? A tunnel of deep, glowing light appeared at the corner of the room. The light wasn't ordinary. It was pulling him, calling him. His fear mixed with curiosity. He drifted closer, slowly, as if gravity itself had changed. But before he could enter the tunnel, a dark shadow crossed his path. It was tall, faceless, and yet powerful. The shadow whispered in a language he didn't understand, and suddenly the light began to fade. Daniel felt himself being dragged back, violently, into his body. He gasped, sitting upright on the bed, drenched in sweat. His heart pounded like a drum. He checked the clock, 3:17 a.m. Only 2 minutes had passed, but those 2 minutes felt like an eternity. Tears rolled down his face. What was that? A dream? A hallucination? Or had I just tasted death? Next day, Daniel met Aisha and told her everything. Her face turned pale. You won't believe this, she whispered. But in Islamic belief, at the time of death, the soul does experience pulling out, a tunnel of light, and even dark entities trying to stop it. What you saw matches ancient texts, not just imagination. Daniel froze. His scientific mind couldn't accept it, but his heart knew. Something beyond logic was unfolding. As they walked outside the university, a strange silence followed them. It was as if invisible footsteps echoed behind. Daniel turned, but no one was there. He felt chills down his spine. Was death already watching him? The next morning, Daniel walked into the university library. The place smelled of old books, dust, and silent knowledge. Students whispered in corners, but Daniel felt cut off from everything around him. His mind kept replaying the moment from last night. Floating above his body, the glowing tunnel, and that faceless shadow. He opened his laptop and began searching. Near-death experiences UK cases. The screen filled with articles. Some were medical, explaining NDEs as brain reactions, hallucinations, or chemical imbalances. But others were testimonies that science couldn't fully explain. One story struck him. A nurse in Manchester had once witnessed a patient die on the operation table. Minutes later, the patient was revived. He told her, "I heard you crying for me. You touched my hand and said, 'Please don't leave us.' I saw it all from above." The nurse swore she had said those words when the monitors flatlined. But how did the patient hear when his brain had already stopped? Daniel leaned back in his chair, whispering to himself, "This means death is not silence. Something continues." Just then, his phone buzzed again. It was Aisha. "Daniel, can you meet me in the lab right now? I have something to show you. It's urgent." When Daniel entered the lab, the lights were dim. On the table lay medical reports, heart monitor graphs, and a strange audio recording device. Aisha looked tense. "Last night, something happened here. We were monitoring a patient who was declared clinically dead for 7 minutes. We recorded everything. Listen to this." She pressed play. At first, there was only static. Then came faint breathing, and then a whisper. Clear, heavy, not human. It said, "I am waiting." Daniel's blood ran cold. What? What is this? Aisha swallowed hard. That voice was not from the doctors, not from any machine. It came exactly when the patient was dead. Daniel stared at her. "You mean there was something in the room?" Aisha nodded slowly. Something unseen. Something that science doesn't want to admit. They both fell silent. The air in the lab suddenly felt heavy, as if invisible eyes were watching them. Daniel's heart raced. He wanted to run, but his legs froze. And then, it happened again. The recording device, though switched off, lit up on its own. A faint static filled the room, and a whisper echoed, "He saw me last night." Daniel's chest tightened. He stumbled back, almost falling. The words stabbed his mind like knives. "How does it know me?" he muttered in shock. Aisha's face turned pale. She whispered, "Daniel, it's talking about you." That night, Daniel sat in his room, lights off, unable to breathe properly. The walls felt closer, the silence heavier. He kept telling himself it was just technology, just a glitch. But deep down, he knew death had noticed him. To distract himself, he grabbed the old book again. The chapter he turned to was titled, "The Angel of Death in Different Religions." In Christianity, it was believed a being of light came to guide the soul. In Islam, 2 angels came to take the soul, one with mercy, the other with severity. In Hinduism, Yamraj, the god of death, rode a black buffalo to claim the spirit. A paragraph. Each belief described a messenger of death, not just death itself. Daniel closed the book quickly. His breathing grew faster. He remembered the shadow from last night. Was that his messenger? Suddenly, his lamp flickered. The shadows in his room moved unnaturally. The same static he heard in the lab echoed faintly, though no device was on. And then, clear as day, he heard it. A whisper, right next to his ear. Not yet, but soon. Daniel jumped from his bed, trembling, his eyes wide in terror. His heart hammered against his chest. He looked around, but no one was there. No, this is my mind, he told himself. But the goosebumps on his skin betrayed the truth. The next morning, Daniel told Ayesha everything. She didn't dismiss him. Instead, she whispered, "Daniel, do you know what this means? It means the boundary between your life and the other side is getting thinner. You've already crossed once. Now, it might not let you return next time." Daniel's hands shook. "You mean I'm being watched?" Ayesha nodded. "Yes, by something that doesn't belong to this world." Daniel's days began to blur. He still went to classes, still walked through the busy streets of London, still smiled at people who passed him. But deep inside, he felt hollow. Every shadow seemed alive. Every silence seemed filled. He had stopped sleeping properly. Whenever he closed his eyes, the same tunnel of light appeared, pulling him. And each time, he saw the shadow waiting at the end, never moving, never speaking, just watching. One evening, Daniel was sitting by the River Thames, staring at the dark water. Ayesha joined him quietly. She looked worried. "Daniel, you've changed. You look like a man carrying 2 worlds on his shoulders. Tell me honestly, what's happening?" Daniel sighed, his voice trembling. "Ayesha, it's not just science anymore. I feel death following me. I hear whispers in empty rooms. I see shapes where no one stands. Last night, I woke up and found my window open. And outside, in the mist, I swear I saw a figure staring at me." Ayesha turned pale. She didn't laugh. She didn't call him crazy. Instead, she whispered, "It has begun." Daniel frowned. "What has begun?" She lowered her voice. "When you touched death once, you left a door open. Now the other side knows you. Some people believe if you survive death once, you are marked. The unseen world remembers you." The wind around them grew colder. Daniel rubbed his arms, shivering. "So you're saying this shadow will never leave me?" Ayesha looked at the water. "Maybe it won't, unless you find the truth. Unless you understand what happens after death fully. Science can't save you. Only knowledge can." Daniel shook his head. "But knowledge is divided. Science says it's brain chemicals. Religion says it's the soul. Which one is true?" Ayesha looked directly into his eyes. "Maybe both are true. Maybe science explains the body, but belief explains the journey after the body. You need to look deeper, Daniel. Otherwise, it will come sooner than you expect." That night, Daniel decided to dig further. He visited old archives in the university basement. Dusty books, forgotten journals, handwritten notes. Hours passed until he found something unusual. An old diary written by a professor who had studied death phenomena in the 1800s. The diary described patients who spoke after death, not in words, but in whispers caught on strange devices. One line made Daniel freeze. The soul lingers near the body for a time. It watches, listens, waits, and sometimes it chooses to speak. Daniel slammed the diary shut. His heart pounded. Could it be that the whispers he heard weren't imagination? At 2 a.m., Daniel returned to his room. London was silent outside, but inside, his mind screamed. He tried to sleep. He couldn't. Suddenly, his phone screen lit up on its own. No call, no message, just light. Then, a word appeared. Not typed, not from any app, just a glowing text across the screen. I am closer. Daniel threw the phone on the bed, his body shaking violently. His breath came in gasps. The room grew colder, the air thicker. And then, slowly, the door creaked open. Daniel's eyes widened. He whispered, "Who's there?" No answer. Just the sound of slow, dragging footsteps on the wooden floor. Daniel reached for the lamp switch, but the bulb burst instantly, plunging the room into darkness. He froze. His ears caught the faintest whisper, right behind him. "You cannot run." Daniel spun around, but nothing was there. Only shadows, only silence. The next morning he rushed to Aisha. "It was in my room. It's not just following me, it's inside now." Aisha grabbed his hand. "Daniel, listen to me carefully. There's one thing you haven't tried, religion. You've read science, you've read philosophy, but you haven't tested faith." Daniel scoffed nervously. "Faith? You think prayers can stop this?" Aisha's voice was firm. "Yes, because science explains how we die, but faith explains what happens next. If you don't anchor your soul to something, that shadow will anchor it for you." Daniel fell silent. He had always been a man of reason, not faith. But now reason was failing him. The whispers, the visions, the signs, logic couldn't explain them anymore. He whispered, "Then show me, teach me." That evening, Aisha took Daniel to an old mosque in East London. The place was quiet, peaceful, filled with soft light. The imam welcomed them warmly. Daniel hesitated at the entrance, his heart pounding. "What do I even say? I don't believe." The imam smiled. "Belief is not about forcing. It's about asking questions with honesty. Sit. Listen." Daniel sat cross-legged on the carpet. The imam recited verses about death, the soul, the journey after life. Each word felt heavy, like a stone falling into water. Daniel closed his eyes. For the first time in weeks, he felt calm. No whispers, no shadows, just silence. But deep inside, he knew the battle wasn't over. The shadow was waiting, watching, silent but closer every day. That night, before sleeping, Daniel whispered to himself, "If science can't save me, and belief can't prove itself, then maybe the truth lies in between. I have to find it, before death finds me." As he drifted into uneasy sleep, the shadow stood quietly at the corner of his room, silent, patient, and this time, it smiled. Daniel's world was no longer normal. Days passed, but he felt the shadow growing stronger. His body looked tired, his eyes sunken, his steps heavy. People around him noticed, but no one understood. Only Aisha knew. One evening, Daniel sat in the university library with piles of books in front of him. Medical journals, religious scriptures, ancient manuscripts. His pen scribbled furiously across pages of notes. "Neuroscience says NDEs are just hallucinations," he muttered. "Religions say it's the soul leaving the body. But what if both are right? What if hallucination is just the body's view, and the soul is having its own journey at the same time?" His voice trembled as he wrote one chilling line. "Maybe death is not one event, but two, the body's death and the soul's departure. At midnight, Daniel left the library. London's streets were empty, fog curling around the lamps. His footsteps echoed unnaturally loud. Suddenly, he froze. A figure was standing at the far end of the street, tall, still, watching. Daniel's blood ran cold, his breath caught in his chest. Not again. The figure began walking toward him, each step slow, deliberate. The fog thickened, swallowing sound. Daniel turned and ran, his heart pounding, but no matter how fast he moved, he felt the footsteps right behind him. He stumbled into a narrow alley, chest burning. He pressed his back against the wall, gasping. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Daniel dared to peek around the corner. No one. But when he turned back, the shadow was right in front of him. Daniel screamed. When he opened his eyes again, he was lying on his bed, sweating, shaking, his chest heaving. He didn't remember how he got there. His phone buzzed. A message glowed on the screen. "You are almost mine." His hands trembled so violently he dropped the phone. The next morning, he rushed to Aisha's apartment. His voice was broken, desperate. "It's not just visions anymore, Aisha. It's touching reality. It's sending me messages. I can't take this. Tell me what to do." Aisha placed both hands on his shoulders. Her eyes were firm, but full of fear. "Daniel, listen. This is no longer just science or belief. This is survival. You are living between worlds. The shadow wants you. It feeds on fear, confusion, and weakness. You need to choose your side. Science won't fight it. Belief will." Daniel whispered, "But what if belief is a lie?" Aisha's voice grew sharp. "Then at least he'll die holding something, not nothing. The shadow wins only when you stand empty." That evening, Daniel did something he had never done before. He went alone to the mosque. He sat quietly in the corner, watching people pray. He didn't know the words, didn't know the rituals, but for the first time in his life, he felt small and safe. As the call to prayer echoed through the hall, Daniel closed his eyes. His lips whispered clumsy words. "If you exist, whoever you are, save me from this. I don't want to be his." A strange calm washed over him. The whispers in his mind went silent. The air grew worn. For a few minutes, there was no shadow. No fear. But deep down, Daniel knew it wasn't gone. It was waiting. That night, as he tried to sleep, the silence was thick. At exactly 3:00 a.m., the mirror on his wall cracked loudly. Daniel jolted upright. His eyes widened in horror. The shadow stood reflected in the broken glass, though the room itself was empty. It leaned closer in the reflection, its face still hidden, and whispered one final warning. "Time is running out. The next time we meet, you won't wake up." Daniel stumbled back, clutching his head, his whole body trembling. He fell to his knees and screamed, "Why me? What do you want from me?" The reflection smiled, a dark, twisted smile. And then, silence. The next day, Daniel knew he couldn't run anymore. He told Aisha, "If I don't face this, it will kill me. If I do, it still might kill me. But I need the truth. I need to know what happens after death. Not in books, not in theories, but for real." Aisha's eyes filled with tears. "Daniel, once you open that door fully, there's no coming back." Daniel whispered, his voice steady for the first time. Then let the door open. That night, Daniel prepared. He lit a single candle, placed his notes in front of him, and sat cross-legged on the floor. His voice was calm but firm. "Science, faith, shadow, whoever you are, I am ready. Show me the truth." The candle flickered violently. The air grew cold. The walls shivered with whispers. The shadow emerged, taller than ever, filling the room with darkness. Daniel did not move. His eyes locked on the figure. His breath was steady. The shadow leaned closer, its voice like ice. "Then come." and see for yourself." And before Daniel could scream, the flame went out. Darkness. That's all Daniel could see. After the candle went out, the room disappeared. No walls, no floor, no ceiling, only endless black. Yet he was standing, breathing, alive. A cold whisper floated around him. "You wanted the truth. Now walk." Daniel's heart thundered, but his legs moved on their own. With each step, the blackness around him rippled, like water disturbed by unseen hands. Soon, faint lights began to appear, tiny sparks in the void. At first, they looked like stars, but as he came closer, he realized they were faces. Countless human faces floating in the dark, some smiling, some weeping, some screaming silently. Daniel froze. What is this?" The shadow's voice answered, deeper now. "These are the souls caught between, those who died but never chose. They wander forever, neither in peace nor in torment." Daniel's stomach twisted. Souls? No, hallucination. This can't be real. The shadow stepped closer, its form towering, faceless. Deny it all you want, but you are already standing in the place your science cannot reach. Suddenly, a face floated nearer. Daniel's eyes widened. It was his father. The man who had died years ago, whom Daniel had watched being lowered into the ground. His father's eyes were hollow, his mouth open in silent agony. Daniel staggered back, whispering, "No, no, this isn't him. This is a trick." The shadow's laughter echoed like shattering glass. He never believed. He mocked. He stood empty at the final hour. And so, he is mine. Daniel fell to his knees, tears burning his eyes. His whole life, he had followed his father's path of cold logic, denial, emptiness. And now, seeing him trapped here, it broke him. "No, Father." The faces around him wailed louder, as if feeding on his despair. The shadow bent low, its icy presence pressing against Daniel's chest. "This is your future, Daniel, unless you choose. Science or belief, flesh or soul, light or me." Daniel's mind spun wildly. He remembered the library books, the brain scans, the theories of hallucinations. Then he remembered the mosque. The strange calm, the words Ayesha had spoken. His voice cracked as he shouted, "Why do I have to choose? Why can't I just know the truth?" The shadow hissed, "Because knowing is not enough. You must belong." The void shifted violently. Suddenly, Daniel was falling. He hit the ground hard. When he looked up, he was standing in a vast desert, under a blood-rent sky. Fire flickered on the horizon. The screams of countless souls filled the air. The shadow rose taller than mountains, its voice shaking the ground. This is one end. And then in the distance, a door appeared, blinding light pouring out of it. The sound of soft, eternal peace flowed like a river. He felt warmth calling him, pulling him closer. "And that," the shadow growled, "is the other." Daniel's entire body shook. Two ends, eternal torment or eternal peace. But his legs refused to move. His mind screamed for proof. His heart begged for faith. He was split in two. Suddenly, a hand touched his shoulder. He spun around. It was Ayesha. Her figure glowed softly, as if made of light itself. Her voice was calm but urgent. "Daniel, listen to me. This is not just vision. This is your trial, right now. You asked for the truth, and this is it. You stand at the door between worlds. If you do not choose, the shadow will drag you into his side." Daniel's lips trembled. "But I don't know if I can believe. I don't know if I deserve that door of light." Ayesha's eyes softened. "Belief is not about deserving. It's about surrendering. You don't need to understand everything. You only need to bow before the one who does." Her words pierced through the storm inside him. The shadow roared, its voice thundering like an earthquake. Do not listen. She is a false image, a trick of your weak mind. Stay with me, Daniel, where truth and lies are the same. Here, you need nothing, only emptiness. The desert shook. The fire roared higher. The door of light began to fade. Daniel screamed, clutching his head. I can't, I don't know what's real. Aisha's voice rang out, clear as a bell. Say his name, just once, and the truth will show itself. Daniel's throat tightened. The shadow's presence pressed harder, choking him, burning him. He fell to the ground, gasping. The faces of the lost souls swirled around him, reaching, pulling. And then, with the last ounce of strength, Daniel whispered a single word. Allah. The desert erupted in light. The fire vanished. The faces screamed and dissolved into smoke. The shadow shrieked, its form shattering like broken glass. Daniel's body was lifted, weightless. As warmth flooded through every vein, the door of light blazed brighter than ever, its pull now irresistible. Aisha's glowing figure smiled softly. You chose. Daniel's tears streamed freely as he whispered, I don't understand, but I believe. The shadow's final cry echoed, fading into nothing. He was mine. And then, silence. Daniel opened his eyes. He was lying in his bed. The morning sun filtered through the curtains. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. He picked it up, hands trembling. The message from the shadow was gone. Instead, one new message appeared, from an unknown sender. It read only 2 words, welcome back. The journey that began with questions, doubts, and debates finally reaches its ending. From science, we learned the biological truth. The heart stops, the brain shuts down, and the body returns to dust. From faith, we learned the spiritual truth. The soul continues. The grave is not the end, and the unseen world is waiting beyond. But here lies the greatest mystery. Why do these 2 truths never fully meet? Science wants evidence, proof, and experiments. Religion wants faith, trust, and surrender. Both walk on different roads, yet both are trying to reach the same destination, understanding what death really is. And maybe that is the point. Death is not designed to be fully understood. It is designed to be respected, feared, and prepared for. In the end, every human being will face death alone. No scientist will be there with machines to explain it. No philosopher will be there to debate it. No one will hold your hand, except your own deeds, your own choices, your own faith. Believers say the grave will either become a garden of peace or a pit of fire. Scientists say the grave is just earth, nothing more. But when we close our eyes forever, we will all find out the answer for ourselves. So what should we do now, while we are alive? The answer is simple. Live meaningfully. If you believe in God, live with faith and good deeds. If you trust only science, then live with kindness, because this life is all you claim to have. If you are unsure, then live with curiosity, because one day the truth will reveal itself. Death is not our enemy. Death is our teacher. It teaches us that time is limited, that love should not be delayed, that forgiveness should not be postponed. It whispers every day, you are not here forever, make your life count. And maybe, just maybe, the real answer to what happens after death is not something to be read in books or proven in labs. Maybe the real answer is hidden in how we live before death comes. Because when that final breath leaves our body, the truth will no longer be a mystery, it will be our reality. And when that moment comes, science will fall silent, belief will rise, and the soul will finally know the answer.